Welcome to Hockey Nights in Vegas, Season 2. My name is Eddie Rivkin from Hockey Nights in Vegas. Obviously, I'm joined as always by my esteemed co-host, Joe Peyton of the Las Vegas Advisor. And instead of being like all the other pundits and everybody who has opinions about the offseason and players and everything, we just decided we'd skip all that and let the Golden Knights sort of get their legs underneath them and see how the season starts. And then Joe and I are basically going to jump right in. But before we get to the Golden Knights and their surprising start, Joe and I are going to talk a little bit about the Fortress and T-Mobile Arena, the Fortress. Joe, it's not an invincible, difficult place to play anymore. And the crowds are looking a little bit like they may have the Vegas flu.
Well, I was just saying to you before we came on air that maybe there's a vaccine now for the Vegas flu, because it used to be where teams would come in here and they would just be demoralized halfway through the first period. They were just always caught off guard, but that doesn't seem to be happening this particular season. But I will say this, Eddie. It's only 5 games in. They got out of the gate slowly because of injuries. They literally have 6 skaters who would normally be in the starting lineup who are not playing. That's 1/3 of the team. Teams dress 18 skaters for a game. 6 of them are missing.
Okay. That's fair. But before we get to the play, let's talk about, since you and I have been watching the games from the press box together, there's an awful lot of empty seats around the arena. And yes, they announce a sellout, and that's sort of the NHL way because the tickets are in fact sold. But it's not as loud. Against St. Louis, they were down a goal with 6 minutes to play, and people were hitting the aisles.
Yeah, and even last night against the Islanders, it was a 1-0 game until midway through the third period, and there was still the view we had from the upper deck, from the press box. There were a lot of empty seats in the pricey areas too. I mean, in center ice sections, which are 6 and 7 and 15 and 16, a lot of empty seats, which is uncharacteristic of the first 4 years actually.
It's uncharacteristic for the Vegas Golden Knights. However, it is not uncharacteristic for Vegas sports fans. History note for those who haven't been around a long time. When the UNLV Running Rebels were one of the best, if not the best team in college basketball, you couldn't get a ticket to the Thomas and Mack, and seats in what they called Gucci Row, the first couple rows courtside, were going as high as 50,000 if it was a Duke or somebody like that came to town. After their championship run in the early 90s, when Coach Tark left and the run of who knows who the coaches were started, and they started losing, you could get a ticket into Thomas and Mack for basically a song and a dance and a box of macaroni and cheese.
And that's currently going on at T-Mobile. I mean, there were tickets the other night for $19 in the upper bowl, and tickets down in the lower bowl. I saw a ticket for $89 in the lower bowl on the end where Vegas shoots twice. Unheard of. You would have never seen that in the first 4 years.
Vegas sports fans are a fickle mistress, and as we sort of transition to the whys about it, I mean, let me ask you this. Obviously, it was a tumultuous offseason, and we're not going into it. I'm just going to use it as a reference for this conversation. Moving of Fleury and all the other things that have happened. Do you think that the team has used up all of its goodwill? There's only 4 or 5 misfits left: Carlson, Marchessault, Smith, McNabb, Shea Theodore, right?
Talk.
Oh, right. So, okay. So there's 6 out of the original 24 skaters, and there have been some less than ceremonial departures. Do you think that the fans who literally would have bled and took a bullet for the Golden Knights the first couple of years, first 3 years. Do
Well,
you think they're finally just had enough of the management's style and how they're treating their players and how it looks?
here's the difference, Eddie, and you and I are original six guys. And original six teams and teams that have been around, from the first expansion, when they brought in the other six teams in, teams have history, and you develop a fan base that keeps on growing from grandfather to father to son to grandchild. We haven't had the time to sort of get our roots deep in the soil here in Las Vegas. The roots are pretty much close to the top of the ground. So what happens is the moment there's any sort of, I don't want to call it turmoil, but discord, so to speak, it doesn't take much to uproot the tree, so to speak. In other words, if it's a young tree, it's easily going to come out of the ground with strong winds. Where you have a franchise like the Rangers or the Toronto Maple Leafs, who went years before winning a cup, and Toronto's in the midst of getting real close to tying that record. Their fan base is so solid that, yeah, you'll have the occasional guy throwing the Toronto jersey on the ice and displeasure and all that. But the fan base, the roots of the fan base are so deep that it's hard to really shake the leaves off the tree. But here in Vegas, it's so new. And basically what happened, and I hate to bring this up, but the October 1st shooting kind of just galvanized the city and a team together. The city fell in love with this team and the Misfits. And then they go on an improbable run to the Stanley Cup Finals. The bar is set so high now that the smallest little hiccup, so to speak, becomes an earthquake, whereby in a franchise that's 100 years old, it would just be nothing.
A ripple.
Here it's magnified, and we are one of the highest priced tickets in the whole NHL too. So season ticket holders are taking in the shorts right now because they haven't dumped their tickets and there's no one to dump them to. A lot of people don't want to travel. You're not getting a lot of now you're going to start getting the Canadian fans to come in. That was a big influence when Edmonton came in and Toronto came in and Montreal. A lot of their fans would buy up tickets, and the season ticket holders here in Las Vegas would make a pretty penny on that. Well, that's not going to happen anytime soon now because of the COVID thing and because of the way the team is playing also.
Well, so maybe they have to be hockey fans. What's the big deal? This shouldn't be, season ticket holders shouldn't treat this as a commodity or a stock option or an income source. I mean, yeah, they paid their 50. They've had the luxury of being able to.
Well, you know what it is? It's like they got into the stock market right at the bottom,
right,
and just shot up, and they just thought every day was Christmas. And then all of a sudden,
and every day was Christmas for the first 3 years. Yeah.
And all of a sudden now, we don't want to go back to the off-season transactions that happened, but they have completely affected at least half the fan base. I wrote this today in my article.
Hold on, Joe. Hold on.
Yes,
we have a visitor. For those of you who met Gigi last year, unfortunately, Gigi crossed the Rainbow Bridge in June, and a little while later, this Violet Point Siamese came into my life, and his name is Sinatra. He might look at the camera and show you his beautiful blue eyes, but anyway, he's loud and he'll occasionally make an appearance like that. Okay, back to where we are. We're in season 5.
So the fans got spoiled.
Sure, absolutely they did. But now they have to just go to the games and be fans.
And they're pulling the LA Dodger things where they're leaving early. Now our friend Lan, who's notorious for leaving early.
She would do that if they were 70-0. She would leave early in game 71. That's just her thing.
Here's what's going on. There are people beating Lan to the door And that never happened before.
That to me is a telltale sign of something really wrong. The other thing is, a very good friend of mine gave up his season tickets. He
Really?
just said, enough is enough is enough. And the Golden Knights marketing team started calling him back almost instantly within a week, hounding him to get his season ticket back. And he was like, well, what happened to that waiting list that used to have 14 or 15,000 people on it? If they're calling guys who just dropped, and they were good seats, lower bowl toward the corner, but if the marketing department is calling people who dropped their season tickets back right away, the whole myth of the 15,000 people waiting for their chance,
that can't wait list doesn't seem to be.
It seems like can't find anybody on a list kind of sort of thing. And it can't have that much to do with the product on the ice. I just feel like, when we've talked about it ad nauseum, so we'll just mention that the optics of the way that they've chosen to handle business has really rubbed the fickle fan base the wrong way a number of times. And when you exacerbate that recipe with 35 or what did Coach DeBoer say last night? $30 million on IR, something like that, right? And a tie currently for the worst start in franchise history at 1-4. I don't think that there's trouble in River City. Like you said, it's 5 games and you have to be patient. But you know what? That the benchmark that everybody uses is Thanksgiving. Teams that are in the playoffs at Thanksgiving usually make the playoffs. Now, the exception is the St. Louis Blues a couple of years ago. We're in last place in December, came back, won the cup. As a general rule, if you're out of the playoffs at Thanksgiving, there's not enough games left to make up the space. And, 5 games in, the Golden Knights have shown an inability to put the puck in the net. And I wonder if they're going to be able to float it and stay even close enough that they're going to be able to make a playoff push.
Eddie, when you say their inability to put the puck in the net, that's only part A of the problem.
Correct.
Part B of the problem is complete defensive lapses, giveaways, which is uncharacteristic of this team. This team won the Jennings Trophy last year by giving up the least amount of goals.
Not this franchise did, not this team. Not this team as constructed. There's a big difference. Like you said, 6 regulars out, people playing on lines with people that they see in training camp and then don't ever see again. Defensive pairings. There hasn't been an opportunity for any chemistry whatsoever with the lineup. So yes, the defensive laps are very serious. And
the only line that DeBoer has kept together, and I know you have said this to me many times, and you think he's eventually going to have to break them up, is the misfit line of Carlson, Smith, and Marshall. It's the only line that has pretty much stayed together from day one of this franchise till yesterday.
Right.
They pretty much play all the time together. And and they used to be the number 1 line, and then I pretty much went to the number 2 line with the Stone, Stevenson, and Pacioretty line becoming the top line. But that's the only line so far this year that has been stable. Anyway, everything else is kind of DeBoer is just throwing pieces up in the air and seeing what sticks.
But this is the NHL. Any NHL team can defend 1 line. Right?
Exactly.
Say hello to the Edmonton Oilers.
I was just going to say,
a great regular season and get knocked off early because they decide they're going to shut down Draisaitl and McDavid, who, by the way, are not playing together this year, as we saw a few nights ago at the Fortress. But they just don't seem to have people that can put the puck in the net. I mean, Nolan Patrick, number 2 pick overall on a $1.2 million sort of a show me deal. A lot of upside, haven't seen it yet, all of a sudden heard. Evgeny Dadonov, 20-goal scorer plus in Florida when playing with really talented offensive players, had an offseason in Ottawa. It's not unusual to expect a player perhaps to have an offseason in Ottawa, but he comes to a Golden Knights team where there's more talent. They pay him $5 million. I think he's got a goal post and an assist. I mean, there's no sync, there's no rhythm. You know, we've watched those games and they just have no cohesion and no flow right now. And it's because there are no real line combinations outside of the misfits line.
Right.
And Coach DeBoer is trying everything he can to find some chemistry with players, but they're not getting enough ice time, game time, ice time to find it.
Right.
And the horizon is a long way away.
Yeah, and actually last night, the DeBoer kind of referenced that they were running into hot goaltenders. I don't know if that's the case or the Vegas Golden Knights are making the goaltenders look a lot better than they actually are. I mean, they had 42 shots last night.
And 40 plus the night before. But how many quality chances do you
exactly,
think
that's my point. A lot of these shots are coming from the perimeter and from the point. And if nobody's tipping them in front, you know, at this level, goaltenders at this level, that's like stopping a beach ball to them. You know, you get to see a puck from that far out without being screened. So, you know, you can put up 50 shots a game, but if you're shooting from 40 and 50 feet out, what good is that? Nobody's, you know, the power plays had its problems, and they in the preseason, it looked like they actually were making an effort to get bodies in front of the opposing goaltender, you know, right outside the blue paint. But they kind of gotten away from that once the season started too. And I'm not sure what's going on. I know they're 0 for 11 and they're like 0 for 28 going all the way back until I think Marshall scored in game 3 of the Colorado series. That was the last time they scored a power play goal. And when I asked the board that question last night, I asked him whether he still had confidence in the power play system and confidence in the players that he was putting on the ice. And he quickly came back, and I expected this kind of answer. He said, well, we have 3 guys out that normally play the power play. But those 3 guys that are out now were playing during the playoffs when the power play stunk the joint up.
Right.
So to say that we're having a problem now because those guys are not playing now, those guys played in playoffs. And that's the reason why they didn't return to the Stanley Cup Finals, because they couldn't score a power play goal against Montreal. So I think that was a stock answer from DeBoer last night when a question that, you know, you and I both know he's only going to give you a little bit. He's not going to give you a lot when he answers questions. So
Sure.
I try to put him on, you know, I try to put his feet to the fire a little bit by saying, I wanted him to say, you know, we need to change things up. I wanted him to get into saying that, you know, maybe Steve Spott needs to look at things differently, but Steve Spott's his guy. And Steve Spott's going to be around unless someone above DeBoer says Spott's got to go, because DeBoer's not letting Spott go.
I think the one thing that I sort of disagreed with the perspective that we've gotten from the last couple of games in the media room after the game is they said we created a lot of chances and it might have been I don't really think that they've created an excess amount of grade A scoring chances. And I think that they made one not very good goalie look pretty good in Edmonton and playing on a back-to-back, mind you. And then Sorokin last night also playing on a back-to-back. They never really put his feet to the fire. Yeah, there was a volume of shots and shot attempts and that, but the Golden Knights outshot the Islanders, but without having the stat sheet in front of me, the quality chances, the grade A scoring chances,
Yeah, the Islanders had 26 shots, and I would say
10.
8 to 10 of them were quality scoring chances.
10 Bell, grade A from the slot, from the blue point, 100%. And of the 42 shots the Golden Knights landed,
maybe three quality skins, and that might even be stretching the point.
so I don't think it's a hot goalie. I think that their shot selection and the style of play that they're employing right now has made a couple of goalies look good. You know, only a couple of shifts did we see people crashing the net. And that's sort of been the thing that we've harped on for years and years and years. They don't seem to like playing in the dirty areas on the ice.
No, you're absolutely correct about that.
And for a team, last year's team, who was the biggest by height and the heaviest by scale, their aversion to playing in the dirty areas probably cost them a lot between that and the power play. But this year so far, with what we've seen, and this is not a coaching thing. This is certainly not a Robin Leonard thing. He had a bad game in Los Angeles, but against St. Louis, they could have hung a 6-pack on him. Certainly last night, the Islanders, the lower scoring teams in the NHL, one of the lower scoring teams in the NHL, could have hung a 6-pack on him all day. Leonard has been, with the exception of the Kings game, very, very solid, very number one worthy, in my opinion.
He's not the problem. He is absolutely not the problem.
Right.
The problem exists north of the blue paint going forward. That's where the problem exists. They're not clearing out. They're not getting the puck out of the zone clean. They're turning pucks over either right inside the blue line or in the neutral zone. And next thing you know, the puck's coming back at them at a high rate of speed, and they're caught flat-footed.
They're not even playing physical.
Yeah, they had like one game they had only 13 hits for the whole entire game.
Right.
And I don't want to bring Reeves up when Reeves and Carrier, they might have 13 hits between them just for the game. They had 13 hits. It was against St. Louis, I believe, only 13 hits for the whole entire game.
Yeah, they got out hit 33-13 or something like that.
Yeah, so it's just there's no, the team always says it feeds off the crowd. And the crowd feeds off the team. Well, guess what's going on right now?
Hunger.
Yeah.
Nobody's getting fed.
Nobody's getting fed. The crowd's not getting fed, and the team's not getting fed because. And there were 2 or 3 points in the game last night where I turned to you and said, "How quiet is the building tonight?" You could almost hear the players yelling to each other on the ice. Where you never heard that the first 4 years. You could never hear a player yelling for a puck or linesmen yelling, "Good, good, go, it's good." Last night you were able to hear that, which is, I just sit there and I'm like, wow. I feel like I'm at a Florida Panther game, when there's only 6,000.
Don't say that right now.
Well,
they're almost the favorite to win the cup right now.
2 years ago in the Florida Panther game, they were lucky if they got 5,000 people in the stands. And so are we headed that way here in Las Vegas? Are we headed to, like you said, they announced the crowd of 17 plus, but in the NHL, if the ticket is sold, it doesn't matter
if the seat's
come into
taken
the building or not.
Right.
It's considered attendance. There was not 17,000 people in the stands last night.
So let me ask you the direct question, and I'll make it multiple choice. Have you hit the panic button? Is the panic button on your desk with a blinking light saying "hit me," or are we willing to give this another 15 games or so before we think that they're in the quicksand?
No, I think anyone who's ready to hit the panic button or anyone who has it on their desk and it's blinking is acting prematurely here. I mean, injuries are part of the game, but they've got hit with a lot of key injuries.
Yep.
To actually, between Stone and Pacioretty, they accounted for 1/3 of their scoring last year. So they're missing 1/3 of their scoring. They got 1/3 of their lineup on injured reserve or not able to go. So they have their backs up against the wall here. So I think it's much too early. Here's the problem though that exists. If this happened last year, where you were playing only in your division, it's easy to make up points because every game is a 4-point game.
Right.
But this year we're back to the normal schedule where, you're playing all the other 31 teams. You're obviously playing the Eastern teams only 2 times a year, but the point is, so you're playing a lot of games outside of your division, which makes it harder to make up points. Last year, all the Canadian teams play the Canadians, or all the teams in the Pacific. So the Knights did well because they feasted on San Jose and the Kings and the Anaheim Ducks. And those were all 4-point games. Well, there's only going to be a number of 4-point games this year. So Edmonton, they're already 8 points behind Edmonton. If you're playing within the conference or the division, I should say, it might be easier to make up those 8 points. But now it's not so easy because, you may win a game, but at the same time, Edmonton's winning a game. So you pick up no ground. Where if you're playing Edmonton, that's a 4-point swing if you win the game. You win 2 and they don't get that 2. So I'm not panicked. Do they have their work cut out for them to win the division, the conference, I should say? Yeah, they do actually. But all you got to do is, like they say, just get to the dance, and things can happen. As we know, what happened with St. Louis, and actually the year that the Devils won, they were the 8th seed also when they went into the playoffs, and so were the Kings. The year the Kings won, they were the 8th seed also getting in. So just getting in is all you need to do. And I would say if you have to have injuries, maybe it's best to have them in the beginning of the season and not at the end where the games are more important and more ramped up. So we'll see what happens. But I'm not panicking.
Well, to find a little bit of bright in this sort of turd that's been laid the first 5 games, a lot of kids are getting a lot of NHL minutes now. So for the depth of the organization and even the depth of the roster as we continue through the season, the fact that the Dylan Coughlins and Jake Lecisions and last night we saw Daniil Miramanov for the first time, those minutes, though they are not banking points right now, they're banking pretty valuable NHL time. There are other ways to look at a season other than, just the points. And the fact that the future of the team, a lot of the future of the team is getting NHL minutes, where if there weren't this enormous rash of injuries, they probably wouldn't be getting anywhere near as much, can only bode well for them, down the line.
And also, Eddie, if this 4-game losing streak, which is the first, by the way, with DeBoer behind the bench, it's the first time they've ever lost 4 in a row. And they got 2 games coming up, back-to-back games against formidable opponents. So this is not a stretch for this to be a 6-game losing streak. You got Colorado and Dallas who are playing, well, Colorado's playing okay, but they have a lot of firepower.
And they're healthy.
And they're healthy.
And they're healthy.
And they can score. They beat Tampa Bay the other night in overtime. So we'll see what happens. But I wouldn't be surprised if this losing streak gets to 6 before it gets better.
Well, if it gets to 6, then the Nevada Day game on Friday is against the Ducks, right?
That's a must win. That would be a must win.
That would be an important win if it gets to 6, I would say.
Right.
You want to talk about the power play, or do you want to talk about the kids?
I don't care. Whatever you want to talk about. I mean,
the
power play. There's really not much to talk about the power play.
But
their entry is horrible. They're not getting bodies in front of the net. It's usually one shot and out. Whereby, if you watched St. Louis power play and you watched the Edmonton power play, which was excellent, they move that puck around like it's on a string and it's attached. And here's another thing, and I know, and I said this to you last night, the passes that the Vegas Golden Knights were throwing to each other last night were tape to skate as opposed to tape to tape.
We haven't seen a crisp 60-minute performance. We've seen an occasional pretty good period, they beat the brakes off St. Louis pretty good in one period, and they've had some sporadic good stuff, but there hasn't been anywhere near a crisp 60-minute effort yet from the Golden Knights. And the players have said as much in the post game. You know, we need more consistency. We need more consistency. And they're right.
Even in the game that they won, Eddie, it was a bad pass that hit Stevenson's skate and went in.
Right.
It wasn't even a tape to tape, you know? I mean, the passes are just not crisp at all. They're not, there's no flow. It's very choppy. And, you know, in the NHL, the parity is really good. There's, you know, the worst team is not that far off a good team. So if you're not playing well, you're going to get mirrored in a 4, 5, 6 game losing streak. And that's exactly what's going on. And then when you add the injuries to it, it's just a recipe that's not good. It's overcooked.
So let me ask you this, Joe. How much of this inconsistency, both in the defensive zone and the lack of offense, do you attribute to the completely jumbled lineup? And how much of it do you attribute to them just not playing well?
I attribute it to, right now, I don't think there's any leadership in the locker room. The two leaders of the locker room undoubtedly are Stone and Pacioretty, and they're not there. So I think the locker room does not have, somebody's not taking charge there. And I think, you know, you can only do so much. You're never going to hear that, but I think there's a lack of leadership going on right now, and there's a lack of desire. It's almost like everybody's looking around like who's going to pick up the slack, and nobody's picking up the slack.
You don't think that Marchessault and Pietrangelo are taking up the slack in the locker room?
You know, Pietrangelo's a new guy. You know, he may be taking up the slack by default. I don't think he is really, like, in other words, to me, Marchessault has been here from day one, but he can only do so much. Where I don't think he draws the attention that Stone and Pacioretty, like when Fleury, Stone, and Pacioretty would speak in the locker room, and we've heard this from the players themselves. People stop and listen. The players stop and listen.
Right.
I don't know. Marchessault is always running his mouth, so there comes a time where the players tune him out.
We haven't seen him post game once.
No, that's another. Yeah, no, he comes out and he's really honest and he gives his opinion. I'm surprised he hasn't been out there.
You know,
they've been rolling Robin out pretty much every game, and Carlson and Riley Smith, and even Carlson last night, he didn't realize that they started the 2018-19 season at 1-4 when one of the guys in the media said, you know, you had the same kind of start. He was like, we did. And even you and I, we walked out. I said, you know what? I got to go home and check that. And when I came home and checked it last night, they did. They got off to a 1-4 start that year also. But they made the playoffs, and that was the year, obviously, where they had the debacle in San Jose.
Right.
You know, so
I think that the big takeaway, and I missed the first game, the big takeaway was how, what's the right word? Downtrodden Riley Smith was a couple of games ago. There have been a couple of times. I mean, yeah, they have their speaking points and things that they're supposed to cover and all that other stuff. But Riley Smith looked like somebody had beat his dog. And
last night, so did Carlson.
Yeah, Carlson. He literally sat back from the microphone.
Right, exactly.
He the body language and everything else was,
I don't want to be here.
Right.
I don't like what's going on.
Yeah. And it's not like we are the New York media where we sit there and load up bombs and launch them at them every game.
Yeah. No, there's a number of softball questions.
Always.
Always. Yeah. I don't know. I think the Toronto, Montreal media would be annihilating.
They'd be calling for DeBoer's head already.
Yeah,
absolutely. They're already calling for Bergevin's head in Montreal, and they're 1-5.
Right.
Right. let's try to end this on a bright spot. Any of the kids stand out to you that look like, hey, this is a good thing?
I like Coughlin, and I like what I've seen from Krebs so far. He's kind of been thrown into the fire because of the injuries. You know, he may not have made the starting lineup, but because of all the injuries, and he's pretty much holding his own. And Coughlin's got a blast of a shot from the point. So I like Krebs and I like Coughlin so far. I'm not Nolan Patrick. I don't know. He's
I don't
not
think,
really a kid. He's not really a kid, but you know, but
and the sample size isn't big enough yet.
yeah, but I like what I've seen from Krebs so far. It's refreshing to have a draft pick, a high draft pick from the Golden Knights, actually get into the organization and stay with the organization and see playing time. They may have undercooked Cody Glass, rushed him in, and I think that experiment blew up. They shipped him off to Nashville, and from what I understand, Nashville's already sent him back down to their farm team. So maybe Cody Glass was a bust. Nick Suzuki is far from a bust. He had his coming out party during the playoffs. He looks great, and maybe we gave away the wrong guy in the Pacioretty deal. Maybe we should have gave them Glass and held on to Suzuki, but who knows? You know, draft picks are.
It's a lottery. It's a lottery. The one who stands out to me the most is Krebs. You know,
I like Krebs.
in his 4-game cup of coffee last year before he had his jaw broken by a deflected shot, we were both commenting that he doesn't look
Out of place.
overwhelmed out of place. And the first game this year, he was clearly pushing, and he was trying to do too much too often. And I suspect that they probably had a chat with him, but in the games that I've watched, which have basically been all of them, he has tremendous ice vision, and he has a great set of mitts, really super soft hands.
Right.
I wish he would shoot a little more instead of being sort of pass first, but much like how they refused and played shorthanded to protect Keegan Kulasar from going on waivers last year.
That turned out to be a good move.
That was a huge positive strike. And the fact that so far, knock on glass, not Cody Glass, the glass of my desk, they have said absolutely not to Peyton Krebs being involved in any sort of a Jack Eichel deal.
Right.
I think that Peyton Krebs, and I liked them since, you know, the first time I saw him in the camp a couple of years ago. There's just something about some kids that they just flow right with the game. I think that when they get back to some semblance of healthy, Peyton Krebs will push Chandler Stevenson for 1C and probably push Chandler Stevenson down to 3C.
Really?
Yep.
That's a pretty bold prediction.
Hey, listen, every now and then you got to make a prediction based on hockey facts and observation. I just think the kid has the it factor. The fact that he worked out all summer with Pacioretty and stayed in town shows his commitment to the game and to the team. I just think the kid is a future star, and I'm banking on that. I agree with Dylan Coughlin, and you know, Keegan Kulasar is playing really well. He was a little snake bit last night. He showed sign of his, is he ever going to close and score a goal? But he's gritty on the puck. He certainly has very good hands. He's tough to get off the puck in the corner when he forechecks.
Right.
I think he also is a guy that's going to be pretty hard to replace in the lineup, even when they get healthy.
Yeah, he took a pretty big elbow to the mouth too last night. Also.
Yeah, he took a good one to the mush, and I think he blocked a shot in the back. I think he took friendly fire the first time he went off.
He went off at least 2 times last night, and it looked like was he even going to come back, and he did. He gutted it out.
So here we are. We're 5 games in. The Golden Knights are in a very unusual position, looking up at the Coyotes and the Mighty Ducks. It's a weird
Last
year.
place. We've never been in last place.
No, they had to give them the keys to the cellar to get them in it. And
it's not the wine cellar.
No, it is not. So Golden Knights fans, don't panic. I don't want to say trust the process, because I just don't like that after watching the Philadelphia 76ers. But all is not lost. The sky is not falling. People will get healthy. People will get used to playing with each other, and they're going to be okay. Thankfully, they play in the weakest of the four divisions, and they should easily make the playoffs, though winning the division may be much more difficult than we suppose. But please, don't panic. Think about this. Marc-Andre Fleury gave up 6 goals, has a 5.63 goals against average, and a save percentage in the low 800s in Chicago. So everything's going to be okay, folks. Deep breath. They may lose a couple more games. There's 82 games in the season, 78 of them left. Everything's going to be okay. Joe and I are going to be here to give you positive reinforcement at least once a week, sometimes more. And we're actually thinking about taking this show on the road and maybe doing some of these things live, so you guys can throw tomatoes at us as well as good hockey questions. So I think that'll probably wrap it up, unless you have a closing thought, Joe, before we hit the stop button on this thing.
Stay in your seats to the end of the game, especially when it's a one goal game.
Right. Show a little bit of loyalty. Be a good hockey fan.
And be a hockey fan.
Be a hockey fan.
Don't be a bandwagon fan.
Be a hockey fan.
Yeah, be a hockey fan. Stick around.
That's it.
I went through a lot of lean years with the New York Rangers. I never left the game.
40 years in Detroit. 40 years in Detroit.
I never left the game early. Well, yeah. Let's not talk about Detroit right now.
Hey, Detroit's got a winning record. And they stuck a 6-pack on the flower last night. That's it, folks. Season 1, episode 1 is in the books. Like, comment, share.
Hit the subscribe button.
Hit the subscribe button. We're going global. I think we're going to find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all those places. If you would rather listen to us talk than look at our faces, we totally understand and respect.
It would probably be a good choice.
It's probably in your best interest, but we're going to move out of season 2, episode 1, and we'll see you again next week. Take care, Joe.
Take care, bud.